Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we are doing a lot of work. We are going to be making an entire wildflower field. We're making 5 different types of flowers today. So I have different colors of pinks and purples. We're going to add in a little bit of yellow and orange and ivory to warm it up a little bit. I do have some light brown paper here. And I do have a little bit wider of an ivory as well. So I have 2 different color ivories. All the paper I showed before is 1/8 inch wide. That was a 3/8 inch wide. And then of course we need some green. So I have 2 different colors here as well. And I'll go over all those colors in depth later. We do have a little bit of crimp work to do. So we have our paper crimper. We have a cork board covered in parchment so we can build some of our flowers there. We have a needle tool and a slotted tool today. We also have some tweezers because they always come in handy. We have our small craft scissors. We're going to do some fringe work as well. I do have some Aleene's tacky glue, and then I have my Elmer's glue all for making our coils and shapes, and the tacky glues when we start putting everything together. And then we're going to be mounting our wildflowers as well. So we have a couple of choices here. We can have some gift tags or also a piece of nice thick mat board. To start off with, we're going to make our stems and get those ready to dry. And I've showed this a million times, and since we have so much work to do today, I'm just showing the end of this process. I'm making quadruple thick strips here by folding my paper and adding some glue. I'm just going to link to a video I just made a couple weeks ago showing how to make these stems in detail, because I feel like I've made them a lot lately and I don't want to take up too much time in this video. So look in the description box for a link to a previous video about making another type of flower that'll have these stems, and you'll be able to see it a lot more in detail there. So after our stems are set and dry, we made a whole bunch. Now we're going to move on to our first flower. And the first 2 are going to be the easiest, and they're going to be sort of like our filler flowers. Right now I have some raspberry colored paper, and all I'm going to do is tear different strips there that you already saw, a few different sizes, and then just run those individually through my paper crimper. If you haven't picked up one of those paper crimpers that have the 6 different teeth options, highly recommend. It's just helpful to have the choices all in one machine. And all I'm going to do is take my slotted tool, put it in one side, and just roll her on up. And once these are rolled and glued, you can let them open up a little bit if you think it's too tight. They just give the impression of a ruffly little flower bud, almost like a rose type flower. And when we make the different size strips and do the same thing, we make little clusters of them. It'll look like different flowers growing on the same plant in different stages of blossoming. And you might be wondering also why we just didn't roll the whole strip, or sorry, crimp the whole strip and then tear it. And the reason is you will lose some of the texture that way. So instead of doing it all at once, we just tear the strips and roll them individually. I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to move on really quickly because we have so much to go through. This is going to be our next little filler flower. Most of these are very made up flowers, so that's why they don't have names. This one is going to have a brown center, and then it's going to have some ivory as well. So I tore off about 1 inch or so of the brown, and then just like before, different sizes of the ivory. Of course, you can change the colors in these as you wish. This is just what I'm choosing here. I wanted sort of a neutral color, so it's where the ivory and brown comes in. All I'm doing is starting off by rolling the brown all the way from end to end on my needle tool, gluing down the end, and just wrapping it up, leaving it on my needle tool, just making a very small, tight coil. And then, while the brown is still on my tool, I'm going to add a little bit of glue and start with the ivory. Press that to dry. It should look like this at this point, just kind of hanging off. I want the ivory to go all the way around the brown, just in one layer though. So add a little bit more glue just to get that first layer done, and then I'm going to roll up the rest without glue. And when that opens up, it's going to have a brown center wrapped in the ivory, and then a couple more layers of the ivory going around. We're going to glue that to set that end. Just give it a little bit of rub to make sure it's all secure. And that's pretty much it. We're going to do this again with different sizes, just like that ruffly pink flower we just made. If you want to, you can use some smaller strips of the ivory color or whatever color you choose on the outside and wrap it completely around, just like another full layer of a solid color. And that would be just like in the raspberry one we just did. We had some smaller little blossoms, little flower buds, and then the bigger ones would be more full-grown flowers. This is kind of the same idea. So this time I'm not going to let it open up at all. Glue the end all the way down so there are no layers to be seen, and that would be, like I said, a smaller flower on the same plant. Ooh, stuck to my finger. And then you're going to make a whole mess of those in different sizes. There we go. And that is flower number 2 of 5. All right, so now we're going to move on to our next. This is going to be probably the most traditional looking flower of all of them. And now we're using another strip of that same brown to tie the color back in. This is about 6 inches or so. Let that open up a ways and glue that down to make a coil, but then we're going to shape that a bit. And yeah, sometimes just needs a little rub. There we go. We're going to now pinch both sides and kind of bend the center over. You can use your finger or a tool, making sort of a half moon shape. But we also want this half moon shape to be a little bit 3D. You're going to notice as we're going through this project, we're doing lots of color, we're doing lots of textures, and we're doing a few different height levels. So it's really got a lot going on to it in this one project. Once you've got your little half moon domed, you're going to put some glue underneath. You can brush it out with a small paintbrush if you'd like. We're going to set that aside to dry. That's going to be the center of our next flower. For the petals for this flower, I am just rolling 6-inch strips of a deep yellow paper. I'm just turning that into very simple teardrop shapes. Let it open up a little bit and either glue then pinch or pinch then glue. That's up to you. I like to pinch then glue for most of my teardrop shapes. And that is going to be about it. All you have to do then is just glue your teardrops to the underside of your half moon. To keep everybody from sort of wiggling around too much, I'd like to pin the center of my half moon in place and then just use a little bit of tacky glue or Elmer's for this part if you'd rather. And then we're just getting all of these little teardrops nice and close and snugly underneath our brown center. These flowers are, we're looking at all of the flowers in this project, I should say, from the side. So this is not going to be a full 360 view of this flower from looking from the top down. So that's why the flower petals are coming from the underneath. You can do 3, you can do 5, you can do different colors. You can do whatever you like, but here I mix it up a little bit with a little bit of both. So there is our simple flower number 3. Set that aside to dry. And now we're getting into the ones that require just a couple more steps. Still very simple. This is flower number 4. Again, no names for these flowers because they're all sort of made up shapes. But here I have 9 inches of an orange quilling paper. Similar to the last shape, I'm just making a nice teardrop out of this color here. Add in a little bit of glue and get that to set. I apologize also for the lighting on this flower in particular. It kind of gets a little wacky. I'm not sure what was going on in my house at this point, but the sun got real bright on me all of a sudden. And the colors got a little weird, but hopefully everybody can still follow what is happening in the video here. This is a second teardrop. I'm rolling of the same color, just a slightly smaller strip. It's about 7 inches. Same idea there. So now I have one that's a little bit bigger and one that's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to layer them side by side with just a little very thin line of glue. And then I want to kind of give a good squeeze. I don't want to lose too much of my center in my teardrop, but I want to give a good squeeze, and it should look kind of like a lopsided heart because that one was a little bit smaller. You're going to need to do 4 of these little groupings for each flower. And then I also have 2 4-inch teardrops. So those are going to be sort of our petals for this flower. But the center, remember I just talked about how we're doing some different textures. The center for this flower is going to be fringed. So I have a wider piece of quilling paper. This is, I showed it in the beginning, a 3/8 inch wide piece of quilling paper, also an ivory color, trying to tie back into the ivory we used on the other flowers. And I'm just using some small scissors and fringing like crazy. There's a lot of very tight little snips. I need about 5 inches or so of this. So once I get to my 5 inches, get rid of that little bit that was left. And I like to use a slotted tool, and I'm rolling up fringe just to make sure I don't smush anything with a needle tool. I'm just rolling this all up from end to end. Just about there. And then not letting this open up at all, just gluing down the end. This is what is going to act as the center of the flower for the orange petals that I just made. If you don't have wider strips or you can't find them, I will leave links to everything I used in the description box for this project, but don't run out and get any wider paper just for this. If you don't want to, I have in the past glued strips long ways, top and bottom together, to make wider strips, and after that dries, you can fringe them just like a pre-cut wider strip. Just something to think about. I can leave a link to a video where I've done that in the description box as well, so you can see what I'm doing there. But back to the flower here. I took 2 of those little lopsided hearts that we made from the groupings in the orange that I showed a little bit ago. I sort of bent those to give a nice arc to them, and I am gluing them on either side of the fringe, but slightly down, so the fringe is peeking up over top. And then I'm going to take the other 2 lopsided heart petal things that we made and glue them together, smaller petals facing each other. After that is all set for a few minutes, I'm going to glue the petals without the fringe on top of the other group, still being able to see the fringe sticking out of the top. Remember I talked about, in addition to texture and color, we also have some different height things going on here. So this is another flower that has a little bit more height to it to just give a little bit of variation to our wildflowers. And then I have my 2 smaller little 4-inch petals, and I didn't notice until I was editing this video that I glued these petals in the reverse of all the other flowers that I had made like this. So here in this part of the video, for some reason, I decided to glue the center to the flower and the pointy part of the teardrop is facing out. And you're going to see in a second that all the other flowers that I made in this same way, those points are facing in. See, there you go. If you can see the bottom of that one, points facing in. Didn't even notice at all until I was editing the video. So I like to leave my mistakes in. I think it's funny. Everybody makes mistakes. So made a few of those. Now we're moving on to number 5 of 5 of our flowers. And this time I'm using 2 different colors of purple. One is called Plum, one is called Purple, and they're both from Quill Creations. And again, all the papers are going to be linked in the description box. And I am just tearing off different length strips in both colors. Some are going to be about 4 inches, some are going to be about 6 inches, some are going to be somewhere in the middle. And just very similar to everything else, we're just going to make really traditional teardrops to start with. So here is one, and just like before, add some glue. Hello, glue. This is a trick I've said a million times in this video, and I still get questions about it, but what happens when your glue stops working in your needle nose container, which is going to happen. Just as a reminder, store it upside down as you're working instead of what I do, which is just throw it on the table next to you. It'll keep the glue from clogging on you, like mine just did. So I have a bunch of my little teardrops here now in the 2 different colors, and similar to the orange flower, I am layering them on top of each other, side by side, mixing up the colors. And in this one, I am squishing them quite a bit more than I did in the orange. I'm not as worried about losing the center eye there. Now I have an even smaller one, and I'm pinching that on there, and I'm curving the bottom a little bit. These flowers are going to have sort of a stripe to them and a good curve to the petals. That's what you're looking for, and you're going to make a few of these, mixing up how you do the stripes. Sometimes they can have 2 colors of the same next to each other. Sometimes they're going to be spaced out a little bit more. They can have 2 petals, they can have 3. They're going to wave in different directions, but they're all going to meet in the center point. So that is kind of what I'm setting up here. Once I have the look that I like, just adding a small dot of glue. You can use whatever glue you like for this as well. And we're just going to glue them together where the points meet. I should have probably used Elmer's for this because it's got a little gloopy on me, but it will dry just fine. For this flower, I'm just doing 3 petals. You can do up to 5 if you like. And then we're going to add a little bit of green to this one where the flowers are going to end up meeting their stems. So for this, I have about 6 inches of this green here. You can vary this by making them a little bit longer or a little bit smaller if you like. Depends on the size of your flowers. If you add in more petals, you might need a little bit bigger of a base here. So I'm just letting this unroll a little bit and gluing the end here. So starting off in a teardrop, but we're going to turn it sort of into a long triangle. So opposite of the side where I just made the point, I'm going to make one and then a little one off to the side. So that's sort of a little triangle shape there, if you can see. And then it's just a matter of gluing that to the base of our flowers. And again, all these flowers we're looking at from the side. So here are a couple other examples. This one has 4 flower petals. This one has 5, very roughly, very flowy. It's a lot of information, but we're done with our flowers now. We are going to move on to some quick leaves. So you can mix these up and add these in as you see fit. The first is sort of just a broad leaf that you would see again from the side. All I'm doing is making sort of a loop. That's about it. And gluing about half of it down. That's where it's going to meet the stem of our flower. Remember all those stems we made in the beginning? So there's one quick option of a nice broadleaf. So you can make a whole bunch of those and different sizes and set that to the side. The next thing we're going to do is similar to some of the flower petals we just made, where we stacked teardrops on the sides of each other. So here I have some tiny little teardrops made from green, and I'm just stacking them and pinching them and putting them in little clusters of 3. That's going to be our second of our little leaf options. You can make 5 different leaves or however many different types of leaves for your different flowers. I did not go that far. I'm just making 3 here. So that's number 2 of 3. We have a whole bunch of those in different sizes. And then the last little leaf couldn't be easier because it's just teardrops from our other color of green to match our other stems. So we have a whole bunch of those in different sizes. I don't think you need me to see me make teardrops again for the 30th time in this video or whatever it is. So you're going to make a whole bunch of those. And at this point, finally, 20 minutes in, we have all the aspects of our wildflower field. We have our 3 different kinds of leaves. We have our stems. We have our orange flowers and our little daisy-like flowers and our purple fluttery flowers. And then we have all the filler flowers we made in the beginning of our video, our purple ones, and then our little ivory circles. So we have done a lot of work so far, and now it's time to start mounting them to our surface. You can obviously do this however you like, however you see fit. But if you're looking for some tips, here are some ideas. What I started with, and this is kind of a not unpopular theme in quilling. I've seen a lot of examples of this sort of project. Like I said, you're looking at the wildflowers from the side, and they're all sort of just standing up parallel to each other in the garden. So to start with, to make that a little bit easier, place your flowers where you want them. Get that looking how you think is best. Get them sort of all, facing the directions that you want. If you want them slanted, do you want them all just pointing straight up? Are they crowded? Are they more spaced out? Are some taller? Are some shorter? Whatever you think. So I started with the large flowers that I had and just sort of got them all spaced the way I wanted to. I think at that point, it's more or less looking good. So now I'm going to go ahead and just glue down the flowers and go from there. You can use, again, whatever glue you see fit. I am just going to do just a tiny bit of my Elmer's. And I'm starting there. So once I get all my large flowers glued down, I am going to move on to the next step, which is going to be adding some of the stems. So you can see now I have my stems, and I am using tacky glue on my parchment paper and just dipping them in with my tweezers so I don't get my fingers all gluey. And I want all of my stems to be stopping at the same place. 1, because I like the look of it, but 2, because I'm going to be putting this in a frame when I'm done. And I want to make sure that I don't go any further than the frame allows. So I do have a little bit of a marking on my mat board where I want all my stems to stop. Just in case you're wondering how they got so even. You can't see it in the video, but there is a little bit of a marking there. Another thing to bear in mind is how you lined up your flowers might allow a look of some flowers are in the front, some flowers are behind, such as this purple one that I have here at the top. That is essentially behind that orange flower. So I have to measure out the stem in pieces. So it goes from the bottom of the flower to the top of the orange flower. Then you're not going to be able to see the stem for a moment, and it goes from there. So you might have to do that in pieces as well. So just measure it, give it a little snip, and then go from there. We have a lot of stems, so it's okay if we measure incorrectly. You also want to make sure that if you are doing that, your stems are straight, that you're not going crooked by accident. So just take your time, get everybody all lined up. And then after the stems, we're going to move on to adding some of our little filler flowers into where we feel like there's little gaps. After my larger flowers have all their stems, I'm filling in any space that I think might need a little bit more color or a little bit more texture with some of the little flowers we made from the beginning. So these are just little flower bud type things, adding those here and there. You can fill in this idea a lot more than what I did as well. You can also just do stems that only have leaves. Maybe there's more greenery in your piece. Totally up to you. There are no rules to this at all, except experiment and have fun trying out different textures, trying out different colors, making up flower petals as you go along. They don't always have to look exactly like what you'd see in nature. They can be totally made up flowers. Now, at this point, I am pretty happy with where everything is. I've started finishing up my gluing. I've added some leaves to my filler flowers and also to my longer stems. And this is where I ended up. Like I said earlier, there's a mix of color, there's a mix of texture, a mix of heights on the flowers. You could even do this on a smaller scale and make some gift tags as well. I think these really kind of pop on that brown craft paper gift tag. So I'll try to find some of those and link that in the description box as well. These ones are really old, but I'll try to find something similar in case anybody wants to do this part of the project as well. I think they turned out really pretty. I hope everybody liked this project. I know it was a lot of information and I kind of flew through it, but the main idea is that there's really no rules. You can make up your own flowers if you want to. You could take a couple ideas and add them to your favorite flowers to make your own composition. It's whatever you like. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments and I'll answer those as soon as I can. Don't forget to look in the description box of this video for links to all of the tools, supplies, and papers that I used today. And I also mentioned a couple other videos. I'll leave those down there. You'll also find a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page that I'm showing here that has some quilling extras and ways that you can support the channel that allows me to keep making these videos week after week, which is always greatly appreciated. You guys are amazing and so supportive. I'm always incredibly thankful to everyone who has shown up there. In the meantime, be kind to your neighbors, take care of each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video, and I will see you then. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.